Hermione got up with the other family members and followed the procession into the next processing room. Here, small desks were assembled with bustling clerks assigned to each prisoner. Snape was brought to the desk of a peevish-looking young man who seemed to be hyperventilating just a bit. As Snape's chains were removed, the clerk visibly gulped. Hermione appeared at Snape's shoulders, and the clerk seemed relieved to have her as a buffer. Snape merely lifted his eyebrows. Hermione shook her head as if to answer his questioning eyebrow. "Don't ask." "If you don't remember me from class, sir, I'm Mr. Newman. You failed me during my 3rd year?" "Yes. And if it hadn't been for your head of house, you'd have been expelled. Now get on with it, boy." "Oh, right." The clerk nervously cleared his throat. "Congratulations on your release. I have some paperwork you both need to sign and fill out. Where you intend to live, how you intend to support yourself, as well as promise not to recidivate." Snape pulled a sour face. "And just how would I recidivate? You already know I can fly." Newman looked helpless and flapped about. "You can always go back to prison if you don't like it," Hermione suggested, taking cue from the tactics of the earlier clerk. Snape glared at her for interfering. Hermione ignored him in favor of flipping through the paperwork she needed to sign. Again, it listed her as the next of kin. She didn't get that, but it stated clearly that she was, and in small print on page 2 it said, "Related by way of marriage." Well, there it was. Some distant relative of hers was a distant relative by marriage to him. As she was casually flipping through the obscure contract, Snape pored over it obsessively, rapidly firing off questions at the clerk. Yes, some of the promises were vow-bound. No, the clerk didn't know which ones. Snape refused to sign anything without clear answers on which promises were vow-bound. Hermione glanced petitiously at her watch. The whole day had gone to pot. "Oh, for fuck's sake!" Hermione hissed at him as Newman tottered off to find his supervisor. "Just sign the damn paper so we can leave." "I don't recall asking you to be here," Snape smirked, "and I refuse to vow anything the Ministry hands me without investigating it first." Snape's brows furrowed up. "Just why are you here, Miss Granger? Where's Minerva?" Hermione gave a long-suffering sigh, blowing an errant curl from her face. "Supposedly I'm your next of kin. We're family." "Impossible." "Improbable," she pointed out. "I don't think it's likely either, but that's what their paperwork says, and they're hell-bent on it." Hermione flipped to the small print on page 2 and pointed it out to his surprise. "Apparently, we share some distant relative." "So you're my kinfolk. Oh, goody." He surveyed her up and down slowly, those hawkish black eyes inspecting every detail of her body. "Of course, the family resemblance between us is overwhelming." She snorted. "It bears investigating," he said pensively. "In case you ever need a kidney transplant." "Something like that." Newman returned with his supervisors. The conversation was straightforward. The contractual terms of his release were completely standard and absolutely straightforward. Take it or leave it. The Aurors were standing by to escort him back to Azkaban if need be. Snape signed. He confirmed he had a home to go to and a form of employment to sustain him, or someone who would provide for him. Miss Granger was made to sign her part, affirming that he was being readmitted to her custody. She signed with wholly too much flourish, with extra loopy swoops that mocked him. His caretaker, really. A bundle containing his wand and the robes he wore to his trial were unceremoniously shoved in his hands. As Hermione had already signed her portion, she was ready to bid him adieu and put space between herself and the dour wizard, but she waited patiently while he changed in the men's room. He emerged looking as if he'd been under the weather for a few weeks, but otherwise no worse for the wear. Anyone not paying attention to the newspaper wouldn't have known he had been incarcerated. In the ministry foyer they parted. Hermione offered him a polite, "Welcome back," and Snape acknowledged the piss-poor attempt at a hero's homecoming with a nod. She returned home, greeting Crookshanks, and had a bowl of cereal, then shared the dregs of milk with the fat Tom. Where Snape returned to, she didn't know. Fit and trim in her maturation, Granger improved since graduation. She was so headstrong, it was a turn-on. Too bad she was a relation.